Okay, once again, good afternoon, all of you. Welcome to the Spring Framework class. So we have seen the demonstration of Spring Data Java Persistence API. So in this online session, we'll revise the topic. So it's very important topic, Data Java Persistence API. So in this online session, we'll be discussing about Spring Data Java Persistence API. That is JPA concept. The program I'll explain. And here, what is actually Spring JPA concept is how to access database using JPA repository. Okay. So what is a repository means? Collection of database functionalities to store the data, to retrieve the data, to update the data. This JPA repository provides set of functionality. By default, automatically it will create the functionalities. So that is the advantage of using JPA concept. So here there is a third-party software will be used called Hibernate, which is doing the object to relational mapping. So basically, JPA is actually done by object to relational mapping. Here, object means Java object, and relation means table. For example, when you create a table in a MySQL database, okay. So that is actually the table. Table is also called as relation, right? So here, just 1 minute. So table is also called as relation. So here it means object to relation mapping means how Java object is mapped with MySQL table. Okay, so that's how you have to understand. Okay, so here we are going to use the API called Java Persistence API. Persistence in the sense storing the data between Java object to relational database table. So here JPA acts like a intermediate functionality which will carry the data to the database, and JPA act like an intermediate coordinator, like a controller logic to store the data, to retrieve the data from the relational database. Okay. So here Spring JPA is also a kind of persistence API where we can use MySQL, the relational database, we can integrate by using Spring MVC application. Okay, so especially Spring JPA is used for integrating Spring MVC application with the database. Okay, got it. So here, what is the advantages? In the next line, you can see the advantage. It will simplify the logic. Like there is no need to write SQL query based logic for interacting with the database. Okay, so that is a to improve the implementation of data access layers by reducing the effort to the amount. Okay, so that is the advantage of Spring JPA. Spring will provide implementation automatically by replacing all JDBC based repository with the repository created by Spring Data JPA. So the last line you can understand. So all JDBC based repository will be removed, and here the repository will be created automatically by using Spring Data JPA. Okay. So how to integrate Spring Data JPA is we have to use the dependency called Spring Boot Starter Data JPA dependency we have to include. So when we discuss about the demonstration, we have discussed how to include Spring Boot Starter dependency. So this library we have to include called Spring Data JPA. Okay. So this library provides the Hibernate. Hibernate, as I told already, the Hibernate is a software tool which will provide object to relational mapping. Okay, Java object is mapped with the relational table, right? So how it is storing the data, how it is retrieving the data, all implementation is done by this Hibernate tool. So how to include this Hibernate tool? We have to include this dependency. Okay, the Spring Boot Starter Data JPA dependency we have to include. So by using this, we can we'll be getting this Hibernate functionality so that we can map Java object with a relational table. Okay. So here the major important concept is there is a one interface called JPA repository. So the JPA repository is a very important interface which provides the default implementation for various database operations like searching a data, storing a data, or updating a data, or deleting the record. Okay, so as we discussed in the class, so JPA repository interface, we have to use this interface so that this JPA repository provides the default implementation for finding all the records by, there is a function called find all. Okay, so for find all function, it will create the logic automatically. There is no need to type the code. And we have a find by ID for searching a particular record by using ID. We can able to use this, and using save function, we can store the data, we can update the data. So both we can do by using save function, and delete function is used for deleting the record. Okay. So when you want to create a such, if you want to create a Spring MVC application with the Spring Data JPA, what dependency you need? Okay, these are the dependencies you need to include. We need a time leaf for data binding. As you know that in HTML program we use th colon text, that kind of binding, right? Similarly, th colon each attributes, right? So that binding is done by using this dependency time leaf, and we need a MVC framework. So MVC framework is needed in your project. So we need a starter a web Spring web unit, then development tool unit. Then to interact with the database, you need MySQL data connector, MySQL connector dependency unit. And finally, this is actually very important, called JPA. Okay, so here you can see Spring Boot starter data JPA. So at least you have to remember this dependency name. Okay, Spring Boot starter data JPA. Okay, so these are the dependency you have to include in your project. Okay, so now the whole application flow is like this. First, we need to create a table here in MySQL. We have to create a table. So for example, we can create a table for storing employee data. So we can create a table in MySQL. Then we have to create a Java class with respect to the table. If you are creating an employee table, you have to create a Java class here. Okay. So this is called entity, and this class is called entity. So there is a one annotation called at entity. So using at entity, we have to mark that class as an entity class. And entity, when you mark that class as an entity class, it will map the class with the table. So the data is mapped. So if you use setter function for the class, okay, when you use setter function, we are actually storing the data in the table. Okay, so that's called as ORM mapping. Okay, object to relational mapping is nothing but when you use setter function, we are actually storing the data in the table. Okay, so since this particular model and this table is mapped. Okay, so after creating this table model, we have to build the repository functionality. We have to build the repository functionality using JPA repository interface. Okay, so this JPA repository interface provides the default implementation for all the uh, for the particular table. For example, if you are creating an employee table, this JPA repository creates all the implementation functionalities for finding all record, saving the record, searching a particular record, and as well as deleting a record. Okay, so it will create the functionalities. Okay, so just we have to use the interface JPA repository. Then we have to create user-defined interface. We have to create our own user-defined interface. Okay. So then after that, we have to create one service interface. This is called service interface. So in the service interface only, we have to specify all user methods. For example, we can create user-defined function for get all employee list. Okay, get all employees, and find the get employee by ID, save employee, update employee, delete employee. So like that, we can create user-defined functions. That user-defined function we can implement by using this class. Okay, so this is a class you have to create, employee service implementation class. This class implements this particular interface. Okay, so in this class, what we have to do is we have to implement all the functionalities. We have to implement all the functionalities. Employee service IMBL. Okay. So once you do this, this is called backend services. Okay. Now we can come to the front end. So in front end, browser will give a request to this controller. Okay, for example, localhost. For example, I'll type localhost 8080. Okay, so when you type localhost 80, it will hit the controller. So we need to create a controller to process the request. If the controller, based on the URL pattern, we can show the pages. Okay, so pages can be shown by using a view layer. So this is a complete picture of the application flow. And now let us see how to the implementation. Okay, so first step is we have to, the first step is table. We need to create a table. Okay, in MySQL database, we have to create a table. So this is a table for I have created called employee table with the data ID. Here another data called name. Here another data called salary. Okay, so this is a table we have created with some records. Okay, so once you do that, we have to create a project structure. You have to create a project structure. So you know how to create a project in Spring Boot, Spring Tools, right? So you have to create a project by including all the dependency. In the previous slide, I have discussed about dependency, right? So you have to include all the dependency, then create the project. Once you create the project, first you need to do is you have to create 4 packages. Okay, you have to create a 4 packages. First one is controller package. The next one is model package. The next one is repository package. Next one you have to create service package. Okay. So why we are using this packages to separate the application logic? We are creating a different folders so that you can easily configure the controller. You can easily configure the model, and we can easily configure the database repository functionalities, and we can easily configure the service interface. Okay, so first we need to separate it. So what I did is I have in this project I have created a controller package, model package, repository package, and service package. Okay, so now under this package we have to create the respective classes. Okay, so first what you have to do is, so in the previous we have created a table called employee, right? So for this table, first we need to create a model class that is called employee model. Okay, this is, so this is the first class you have to create, employee model class. And now this employee model class, okay, we have to utilize by using a repository. Okay, so we have to create, first one is employee class, the next second you have to create repository. Okay, now you can see here the application flow. First you have to create an employee model, then employee repository. Okay, so you have to create an employee repository interface, and then we have to go for service implementation and interface, then controller. Okay, and for view we have to use index.html, add employee.html, update and employee.html. Okay, so now I'll show you that program. Before that, for connecting to the MySQL database, in application.properties file, we have to include these parameters. Okay, inside application.properties, we have to include these properties called a Spring data source dot driver class name. So this will identify the database, and it will connect to the database, and it will use this username and password. Okay, right. So now I'll show you that program. Right. So this is a project I have created. So you know that Spring database demo project I have created. So here I have created package called controller com.example.demo.controller, and model package, and repository package, then service package. Okay. So I'm using exam server. So we have to start the exam server. So here the Apache server you have to use, and we are going to use MySQL server. So in this MySQL server, we are going to create a table for storing the employee details. Okay. Okay. So first we need to start the Apache server for running this database, right? So and we need a MySQL server. So we have. I'll just show you that database here. Okay, just wait for that. So after creating the project structure, first create the table. Okay, so you just go to this admin button and you'll get this page, right? So here we have created a database. Already we created Karunya as a database, and inside Karunya we have a class called employee class, right? So inside this employee class we have a data ID, name, salary. Got it? So this table only we are going to access. Okay, so how to do that? First, what's the first step? First step is you have to create an employee model. Okay, you have to create an employee model. So create employee model inside the, now look at this screen. Here you can see model package. Inside model package we have a employee class. So if I double click, so you can see the full coding. Okay, so this is a employee class. So in employee class, what we are doing is we are creating a class called employee with three variables, three private variables. For you need to use private. Private, why it is? Because the data you have to protect inside the model class. Okay, so ID, name, salary. So this ID, name, salary is actually the column names, ID, name, salary. Okay, so you have to create the variables, and this class is called as entity, right? I told you it's called as entity. So we have to mark as a @ entity. Okay, then you have to use annotation called @table, and inside you have to specify the table name. So what's the table name? Employee is the table name. Okay, so you have to give the name of the table there, and you have to generate setter getter methods. Okay, so setter getter methods you have to generate, like get ID, set ID, get name, set name. Okay, so this you can automatically generate by right click. You can select, there is an option called source. Okay, so you can select source and you can generate set getters and setters. Okay, so using this methods only, that data storing the data in table and retrieving the data is happening. Okay, so now one more thing is, when you create a table you have to specify any one column as a primary key. For example, ID is a primary key here. So if you see the structure, you can see the ID as a primary key. Okay, so this primary key we have to annotate using ID attribute. Okay, so these all these annotation comes from jagata.persistence.entity. Okay, jagata.persistence.entity as well as ID table. Okay, so that's all about the employee model we have created. So once you complete employee model, we have to go for employee repository interface we have to create. So this is the main concept in Spring Data JPA. This JPA repository provides the default implementation for finding all the records, saving the record, deleting a record, updating the record. Okay, so now let's see the repository class, repository interface. You have to go to repository package. So there is a repository package here, right? So inside repository package, we have created, I have created one interface called, look at this, public interface employee repository. Okay, so this repository extends the predefined repository called JPA repository. So we have to extend, look at this, public interface employee repository extends JPA repository employee class. So inside JPA repository, we have to specify the table name, table class model. Okay, table class model is employee, right? So we have to give the table class model, and primary key data type we have to specify. Okay, we have to specify the primary key data type. Okay, so that now here you need to understand, like when you extend like this. Okay, so when you extend like this, this JPA repository provides, it will create automatically, it will create all the functionalities. What are the functionality? Find all, save or delete, update functions. Okay, so this is actually the second step. After creating this employee repository, we have to go for this interface. So this is the third step. Okay, employee service interface and employee service implementation class. Okay, so inside service package, you have to create the service interface. Inside service package, if I open this employee service, you can see here, look at this, inside service package you have to create public interface employee service. Okay. So inside this employee service only, we have to create all the methods. What are the methods? The user defined functionalities you want to perform with the database. User defined functions. Okay. For example, I want to get all the employee details. So I need a function get employees. So the return type must be a list data type. So why I'm using list is this particular repository, right? This particular repository provides a list type of data only when you are using find all functions. Okay. So now get employee. Similarly, save employee. We can create another function and get. We can for searching a particular employee, we can use get employee by ID. You can pass the ID value, which will return an employee object. Similarly, we can create update employee. Similarly, we can create delete employee. Okay. So these functions we have to create. So once we create these functions, once you declare the functions in the interface, this service we have to implement. Okay. So this service you have to implement by another class. So inside the service package, you have to create one more class called employee service implementation class. So this service implementation class is very important. First thing is you have to annotate this class. You have to attach annotation called service, so that it will find the service interface implementation class. Public class employee service implementation implements employee service. Okay. So this employee service is this interface. Okay. Here you can see that. So now we have to implement all the functionalities. What are the functionality we have to implement? Get employees, save employees, get employee by ID, update employee by ID, delete employee. Okay. Right. So let us see how to implement get employees. Look at this get employees. It should return a list data type, right? So we have to use a find all function. Find all function, as we discussed, the find all function is from JPA repository. So repository provides this functionality, right? So first we need to get the JPA repository reference. Okay. Now here in this line you can see the JPA repository reference. You can how to declare the reference. So already we have discussed the interface called employee repository, right? So for this interface, you have to create one variable. Okay, you have to create one variable called employee rep. This variable you have to use at the rate of auto word. When you use auto word, what will happen is it will automatically create the object for this employee repository implementation class. Okay, so using that reference, we can call find all. Okay, so now this is for find all method. So find all method returns the list of employee from the table. Automatically it will return. Okay, there is no need to write any logic to access the execute the query using SQL queries. Okay, right? This find all. Similarly, the next function save employee you have to implement. Inside you have to call emb rep. You have to call save this object. You have to call. Okay. Next, you can also use get employee by ID. You have to search the employee. So how to search? There is a function called find by ID. So using find by ID, we can search particular record by using a primary key. Okay. So here primary key is ID. So when you use emb rep dot find by ID primary key, it will return optional object. This optional object is a java.util package interface. So you'll be getting in a form of optional object. Using this optional object, we can check whether the object is available whether the record is available in the table or not. Okay. So how will you check? Using optional dot is present. If it is true, we can get the object. We can store the object in this variable. Otherwise, we have to generate one exception. Okay, runtime exception we can generate. Okay, so this is for searching. So this will return the employee object after when you call this function. Okay. Similarly, for update function, update also save only, right? We have to save the data. So update function also we have to use save function emb rep dot save. We have to pass the object. Then finally, we have to implement delete employee function. Okay, so delete employee function, how to implement? Public void delete employee within bracket ID. Okay, so using this ID, first we need to find the record. So to find the record, we have a function called get employee by ID, right? This function we can call. We can call this function get employee by ID. This function returns the employee object. Now this employee object we can delete by using embrep.delete. Okay. So like this only you have to implement the this class, which one? Employee service IMBL class. Okay. IMBL means implementation class. Okay. So this class is actually very important. Just see this how to create this employee service implementation. Okay. So after completing this employee service implementation, so next step is we have to go for creating controller and view component. Controller and view component. Okay. So now we'll see controller component. Look at this. We inside the controller package we have created an employee controller class. So what is the use of controller class? So to understand controller class, I'll execute this program. Right click, I'll run the program so that we can understand what is the use of controller. Right click Spring. So how to execute? Right click, run as Spring Boot app, right? So now let's see the output. Okay, just wait for the output. Okay, so now it start deploying in the server, local server. It is deploying. Okay, so just we have to wait. Okay, so now it is ready. The application is deployed in the server, the local server. You can see this is a local host, and in the local host there is a application is deployed. You can see it is live, right? So double click this, you can see the output. Okay, when you double click, you can able to see the output. So this is the output you'll be getting. Okay. So now what is controller? Okay, so controller is nothing but a request processing class. Okay, HTML request processing class. So when you type something in the browser, the requests come to the controller class. Okay, so for that, in the controller package, we have to create a controller called employee controller class, and you must use this annotation at the rate of controller. When you use at the rate of controller, the Spring framework automatically gives the request to this class. Okay, the Spring framework dispatch all the requests, HTML request, that browser request, to this particular class. Okay, so now we can map the request. The mapping is done by using get mapping or post mapping. Okay, so in get mapping, based on the URL we can map. So how to map it? For example, get mapping slash. Okay, so slash means the local host 8080. Okay, so for example, look at this. Here I have run like this. If I'll take another browser, I'll type localhost 8080. When I type enter, now the request goes to this controller, and the URL mapping is slash. Okay, so what will happen? Since we have used get mapping, this index function will be called. This index function will be called automatically, and inside we are creating model object, and inside I want to call what you want. Actually, when I see this localhost 80, I want to list all the employees, right? I want to list all the employees. So what you have to do is, I want to call get employees function. I want to call get employees function. So to call this get employees function is available in employee service interface. Okay, employee service interface, only these functions are available, right? So we have to create a variable for employee service. Okay, so we have to create one variable for employee service, and you have to use auto void. So auto void annotation creates the object automatically for this employee service. Now, so that this employee service object can be used to access this function, get employees function. So this will return list of employee. This list we can pass on to the index.html file. So index.html file we have created here in templates. In templates folder, we have a index.html file. Okay. So inside this index.html file, I want to pass the employee list, right? I want to pass this employee list to this index.html file. Okay. Okay, so in this HTML file, I want to pass the data. Which data? The list of employees. Okay, so how to pass the list of employee? We have to use the model object in the bracket. Inside the index function, you have to create one model object. Now, model dot add attribute, we have to pass employee list. Okay, so the employee, this is the list, right? List object. We have to pass in the name of employee list, so that this name, this list we can access inside this index.html file. So in index.html file, what we are doing? So in this file, what we are doing is we are creating a table using Bootstrap. We have prepared the table using Bootstrap, and here what we have to do is employee ID, employee name, employee salary, actions. Okay, so we can use th colon each. We can iterate the employee list. We have an employee list coming from controller, right? So employee list is coming from controller. So now we can iterate by using th colon each. So how to iterate? Th colon each equal to employee colon dollar employee list. Okay, we can take every employee, and we can bind the ID name for each employee in the TD variable. Okay, got it. So that's why we are getting the output like this. Look at this 101. Everything is binded. Okay, every employee we are adding and we are displaying in the table. Okay. So similarly, we can also display a button for update and delete. So update and delete button you can create as a hyperlink. For example, in the next column, you can create two links. Okay, one for update, another one for delete. Okay, so in update, when you click this update, you have to go to another update employee form. You have to show one update employee form, and inside update employee form, we have to pass one ID value. Okay, so how to pass ID value as a path variable? You have to use curly bracket. Inside bracket, you have to specify the value ID equal to dollar employee ID. Okay, so this is what this is how to pass the ID. Which ID you want to update? Okay. Similarly, for deleting also, delete employee URL and followed by which record you want to delete. You have to pass the primary key ID. Okay. So ID within curly braces. Then the normal bracket, you have to use ID equal to dollar curly bracket employee ID. You have to pass. Okay. So when I click this update button, the corresponding record, for example, if I click this update button, you see that URL, you can see the URL 101, the record IDs will be sent. Okay. So now this 101 we can read, and we can search that particular record, and we can display inside this form. Okay. Now let us see how to search, how to do that. So when I click this update employee button, it will go to this update employee form ID. Okay. So we have in the controller part, we have to write one function called get mapping update employee form slash the path variable ID. Okay. So this ID you have to read by using, how will you read? You have to use path at the rate of path variable value equal to ID, and you can store it in a variable int ID. So in this integer variable, that ID will be stored. Okay. Now using that ID, we can search the employee. How will you search the employee? We have a employee service interface, right? Employee service interface dot get employee ID. You can search the employee. Once you get the employee, we can store the employee object in a variable, in the model object. Okay. So after that, you can show the update. You can return update form. Okay. You can return an update form. What is update form? Which is another HTML file. This is the update form. Inside this update form, I have used the bootstrap. Okay, I have used the bootstrap file, and I have applied the styling. Okay, so here you have to create form action equal to update employee post th colon object. Okay, here this one you can understand, th colon object dollar employee. So this employee only, it's coming from this controller. Okay, so here we are writing, after searching the record, we are we are passing the employee object using employee name. Okay, so take this employee name and store the object in this variable. Okay, th object dollar employee. Then from this object we can bind the id by using th colon field. Okay, th colon field equal to star curly bracket id, and th colon field equal to bracket name, th colon field equal to salary. Okay, so like this we have to bind. Okay, so after that we can use bootstrap classes like this form control for styling the text box, and width we can provide 25%, you can apply. Okay, so now when I click this update button, what will happen? The data will be updated in this update employee. Okay, so update employee is another controller function. You can see this is a controller function, update employee. So here we are reading the data using this object. We are reading the employee ID, employee name, salary, everything we are reading, and we can save the employee by using employee service dot save. Okay, so return redirect to slash. After updating the record, we have to show the list, right? We have to show the front page, index page. Okay, so how will you do that? For example, I'm updating this John as 100. Okay, so when I click update employee, look at this, John record is updated as 100. Okay, John record is updated 100. For example, if I want to update this Vmax record, so I'll update Vmax record. So name I'll change as will change as Karunya. Just Karunya I'll put. Okay, I'll click update employee. Now look at this, the name of the second record is changed. Okay, you got it? So what we are doing is we are saving the employee object, whatever changes. For example, whatever changes here we are making. For example, CSE. Okay, so all these data we are reading here. The data will be coming to this employee object. From this employee object, we are saving to the database. Okay, then we have to redirect to the slash URL. We have redirect to slash URL. Okay, so when you redirect to slash URL, we'll be coming to the localhost 8080. So this page will be loaded. Here you can see the updated record. Okay, the same way you can do add employee also. When you click add employee, it will show the add employee form. Look at this add employee form. Right, so when I click add employee, so add employee is nothing but a link. Look at this index.html page, href bracket slash add employee form. So we have to create one controller function for showing this form, add employee form. Okay, so that controller function I have written like this. Look at this, get employee, so get mapping slash add employee form. This will show the new employee, adding new employee form, HTML form it will show. Okay, so we have created a new employee.html. Okay, so I'll show you the new employee.html here. So this form will be displayed. So here also I have applied bootstrap, container, text sender, styling and all. Okay, so here we have to apply the form control for styling the text box, and MB is for margin bottom, and W25 is for width 25%. Okay, for the text box. Okay, so you have to prepare a form. Action is equal to, look at the action, th colon action equal to bracket slash save new employee. Okay, so when I click save button, the slash save new employee function will be called. Okay, so this URL is nothing but we have written another function called this one, post mapping. Here you can see. Okay. So this post mapping slash save new employee, when the URL is coming like this function will be called save new employee. Okay. And the data whatever like for example whatever we type here, for example I'll type 105. I'll type data as Joy, 7,000 as 8,000 as a salary. When I click save employee button, what's coming? Now the data is stored in the table and the data is coming here also. See 105 Joy 8,000. Okay. Look at this 105 Joy 8,000. When you click again add button, we can store another data. For example 8997 maybe Vimal as a employee 20,000, okay, or 2 lakhs. When you click save button, the data will be stored in the table, and here you can see the data. Look at this 897 Vimal 20,000, okay. So that's why the data, whatever you type in the form, will be stored in this model, employee model, EMB variable, and that object we are saving using the EMB service. EMB service dot save employee within bracket. You have to call. You have to pass the EMB object. Okay. After storing the data, we have to redirect to slash. Okay. Slash is nothing but a root URL, the local host 8080. Okay. So, so when you use redirect to slash, what will happen? The request come to this mapping. Okay. Get mapping. The request come to this index function. Okay. So whenever you redirect to slash, the request goes to the index function where we are reading the employee list again and we are updating the index page. Okay. So that's what happening. Okay. So that's why after click when you click after save button, the request come to this index page and it is displaying the list of record. Okay. So that's for adding employee. Similarly, finally we are coming to the deleting employee. So if I want to delete, we have a button called delete. So when I click this delete button, that particular record is deleted. Similarly, when I click this delete button, the particular record is deleted. Okay. So how we are to do it? So in index page, we have created a link called th :reference href @ delete employee. So the request go to delete employee with the ID. ID we have to pass as a path variable. How to pass? Bracket ID equal to $employee ID. Okay. So the request goes to this delete employee URL. So for this URL, we have written a controller logic. Okay. So now we have to open controller, employee controller. Here we have a function. So this is a delete employee function. So here you have created a delete employee function. To read this path variable, we have to use @path variable value ID, store the ID. Okay. So see the mapping, get mapping / delete employee / ID. Okay. Got it? So now once you get the ID, we can call the delete employee function from employee service. In employee service, we have a function, right? So hope you can remember, hope you can understand. We are accessing these functions only. Okay. Delete employee function, we have to pass the ID, right? So that function we are calling here EMB service dot delete employee pass the ID. Okay. Then we have to redirect to the original index page. So we have to use redirect to slash. Okay. So when it comes to slash, this index function will be automatically called and again the list will be displayed. It will show the index.html page. Okay. So that's why when you after delete, when I click delete, again this page is reloaded with the updated record from the table. Okay. So that's all about the complete picture of the accessing database using JPA Spring JPA repository.